Wherever you are in the world, welcome to another of my takes on China. And today, I want to talk about democracy again. I recently made a series of videos with the Daily Buy, and in doing so, I went with them to several sites in Guangdong, and I met with people who really work inside and are part of China's democratic process. It was very interesting. It was these videos and some of the responses to them which made me think, it made me realize something quite important that I hadn't noticed before. One of the biggest benefits of the Chinese system that occurred to me is that the single-party system isn't the only factor, but it's the depth of that system. You know, there's that famous photo of Xi as a young man. He's walking out with his shovel to do some hard work. And he was at that time the supervisor of a team, starting at a very low point due to the Cultural Revolution. And that saw him sent to a rural environment rather than staying in the cloistered halls of government accommodation. And he learnt there how most Chinese people lived. Now, we often forget there were some good points to the Cultural Revolution. Not many, I am sure, but I don't know what he was like as a young man, but a great man emerged from that experience. He can run the country because he knows how the people at the grassroots live, and he's asked them how they can be improved. In fact, anyone coming up in China's governance needs to have administrative and supervisory skills at that lowest socioeconomic level before they can move into the mid-level and the high-level roles. In fact, his first book, he emphasized the fact in a speech called "Officials Cannot Be Cultivated Like Greenhouse Plants." In other words, no one is going to be groomed for leadership. Leadership has to be earned. And he wrote that in 2003. What happens locally in the UK, where I was born and grew up, isn't much different. Local government is run by local people. In smaller areas, they are known people. Sometimes they're elected because of what they've done for the community. Sometimes they're elected just because they're already an important member of the community. But the bottom line is they know local issues. They know local people, and for the most part, they work on behalf of the community. But local councillors rarely rise above that level. Going to a county council is a different process. And the same applies with going into national government. They need to leave one role and apply for election in the next. They can't be selected and promoted after peer evaluation to the next level, as happens in China. So in the UK, there's no depth of local knowledge in the top echelons of government. Everyone knows that Xi worked as a farmer during the Cultural Revolution, but many who are critical of him assumes that it was only because of his father's connections that he became who he is today, and that's not true. He applied for and was eventually accepted into the Communist Party. He studied chemical engineering, but he worked as a secretary to a vice premier. Now, that might have been as a result of his father's connections. We'll never know that for sure. But from there, it gets interesting. His career is really different. He gave up that plum job and he went to Hebei to be a deputy secretary. Then he became a vice mayor in Xiamen, a city in Fujian province. And after that, he was acting governor of the province before moving to Zhejiang and then on to Shanghai. All the while learning how to manage and how to administer increasingly larger responsibilities, bigger budgets, more people. Had one of my local councillors in my hometown been especially good at their job, it would have made no difference. They were still local councillors. They're not destined to move upwards. And that's the big difference in the people who make it to the top in China. They've all had that local councillor experience. Now, we can look at the differences between China and the UK's national governments here as well. The UK is the home of modern democracy. The system is known as the Westminster system, and it's named after the Houses of Parliament, which is correctly called the Palace of Westminster. There are two Houses of Parliament. the House of Commons, where we, the common people of course, can elect our representatives from our communities. The party which wins the largest number of seats holds power, and that party chooses their leader. Unlike the USA, the leader is selected by just a few hundred members, which really isn't much different to the way China does it. People elected locally elect their leadership. The other house in Parliament is sometimes called the upper house. It's the House of Lords. And while most people think the UK is a democracy, this House of Lords proves that it is not. It's made up of people either appointed or born to the position. Since 1999, most of the House of Lords is not hereditary, not anymore, but 92 places there are. There are currently 4 dukes, 25 earls, 15 viscounts, 45 barons, and 2 lords of Parliament among the 91 hereditary peers currently sitting in the House of Lords, meaning they were born to rule. With the exception of finance bills, the House has the authority to override all the laws proposed and passed by the House of Commons, and write its own laws if it chooses. The other lords can be appointees. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak did this a few months ago to get David Cameron back into the role of Foreign Secretary unelected. Some lords get the position because they're religious leaders. There are 26 archbishops or bishops who are known as the Lords Spiritual, and others get it as a reward for doing something for the sitting party. Lord Patten of Barnes, the last governor of Hong Kong. Now, his appointment to the House of Lords was in 2005, as an example. And here's why this is interesting to people in China, especially when people in the UK tell them, you have no democracy. The House of Lords is largely made up of conservatives. Less than 1/3 of them, 228, are female. The average age in 2022 was 70. The oldest was 94. He's since passed away, and the youngest holds her position not because her father passed away, but she was rewarded for her work as Chief of Staff to Theresa May when she was just 34 years old. These are the people who have the authority to override the laws that the representatives elected to put in place, and they can do it. There are 2 other aspects that show a lack of democracy in the UK. One is the monarchy. Although the king has no power to override the parliament, he is in command of the military and can order them to do his bidding anywhere in the world where he still holds the power, and that includes New Zealand, Canada, and Australia. He's also the head of the Church of England, meaning that the 26 bishops and archbishops must follow his instructions. And then there's the civil service, which, despite a veer of democracy in the country, these are the bureaucrats who actually run the country, just like in China. But they retain their positions. No matter who wins or loses the election, they make sure the country has some degree of stability, and that's good. The US doesn't have that due to their periodic administration changes. But unlike China, not one of them is elected to their position. So next time someone from the UK tells someone from China that they don't have democracy, please show them this. Feel free to share it widely. And thanks once again for watching my take on China, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.